Peace, 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 peace. Greetings, greetings, greetings. I try to be patient with this message, but I got the phone positioned well, so I would, I do not encourage anyone to, do what I'm doing. I do not support it. So it may sound very contradictory, whoever perspective on it, but again, I'm just focusing more on the road, but I do not encourage people to try to do this and be distracted. Have a sense of awareness, but again, I'm able to focus forward, but I maybe sometimes look like this just because I, have the camera positioned this way. Let me jump right into this. Greetings to all, peace and blessings to all. I want to bring something very insightful. Happy new moon to all. In this new energy, there's a lot of things right now that I just want to bring to a lot of you, to attention to the audience or whomever will be guided to this video later. I'm very much aware if a lot of you that are either coming online or coming to your awareness or even know your ancestors or people that came before you to be of spiritual practices or whatever. For one, let me make this very clear. Know that people, no matter who they are, depending on their beliefs and so forth, depending on their level of awareness on what their beliefs are, their programming, whatever it is, everyone does not have to have the same belief systems. Let me make that very clear for people who are wanting to attack those that have different beliefs. I don't care if it, whatever culture they come from, whatever country. It is so, baffling and fucking disgusting, even when it comes to religion, when it's based upon in America or in a country, because, for one, I'm going to speak on first, this topic of passive racism, which I use the term racism as a form of self-hatred, which is something within. You can do your research on this, but from my understanding and comprehension of, and my perspective on passive aggression or passive racism, is that people that have this analogy or beliefs that they don't even know they have an internalized racism or structural racism that you see in certain corporations and governmental aspects and so forth. And like I said, do your research and go into more of a understanding or comprehensive, if that's a word, or comprehension of what it actually means. I'm only expressing from my own perspective on this. What I see that most people do not talk about, that, man, let me tell you something. There is passive racism in religion, whether you want to call it organized religion and so forth. There is a thing. Let me elaborate for you. Let me elaborate and let me also pay attention. Yes. There is a thing, and let me tell you this. And this is so amazing because a lot of people can relate to this. And if you don't, let it fly. If you let your emotions get to you, I don't give a pluck, because really I'm who I am, and I've came into my own beliefs, and I don't have to subscribe to my mother or father's beliefs, and even the societal beliefs of who I should be, who I am, and so forth. I am confidently who the fuck I am and who I came here to be. Having breaking free from a lot of stuff, speaking my truth and honoring that. And in that, when growing up in what we call the South, if you want to use that, and that's typically like what people call the Bible Belt. And around this is that most people hide behind this image of using the Bible, and other people see it differently because there are a lot of codes or a lot of things that are in there that, again, there are things of substance and value in there, yes. But, I want to remind people that we don't have to take on a narrative of believing that there is a said character that does not look like me, that is of a lighter shade, and we're supposed to just believe and accept that this is who we're supposed to believe, this ideology or this imagery of how it's been used for superiority or psychological warfare. Okay, let me elaborate on this. I just had a talk with, let's just say, someone that is of a lighter shade, and I'm here to break all type of fucking illusions and let people know, again, think for yourself and be aware. Again, to some it may be very triggering or emotional. I have nothing to do with it. I am not in control of your emotions. I cannot speak for you. I cannot think for you. All I'm saying is sit and ponder for a moment. You know, I had this talk with her because a lot of people who are one thing I speak about is uncomfortable truths, and one thing I also do recognize with being in said areas where there is a predominantly people that are lighter shades of color that are passive racist and or internalized racist, or like I said, safe hatred towards people, and also what they're a part of, corporations and careers. This is not all people that are lighter shade, but when I'm pertaining to, I'm going to use a term where people y'all may know as Caucasian. And when I say people, I don't mean all of them, because I have people that are and have dated in, relations and connections with people like that. So let me be very specific. I'm talking about, some may use this term because I told you black and white is an adjective. You cannot be described as a color. But again, when you're dealing with America and the world and the global and the programming, you use those titles to classify everyone and put everyone in a box, and that's not necessarily true. So when you talk about what did someone tell me? These towns, like there are certain small towns or villages that are like white conservative. I believe that's the term they use, or we know them to be typically more of a lighter shade. And typically in these environments they are not fond of darker people. And even though they smile, they hide it. And these are your passive aggressive and passive racism, systematically people or whatever. And it also is in the same sense when it comes to religion, because these are churches that are not really encouraging on inviting people that are darker. Also, these are also certain members that, again, you will never know because it's not really talked to you about it. These are also people that I tell that if you think that certain things have not and still not are at play, they are. Just because they don't wear a white cone-shaped sheet on their head doesn't mean that they not are still a part and have these same beliefs. They are not fond and very embracing of people that are darker. These are certain villages and towns, and it's the same thing when it comes to church. And these are people that will not. And I just had someone specifically, someone that I know, just tell me like, oh yeah, she was lighter, blue eyes or whatever, and she said, oh yeah, I've dated men that are darker. And she also mentioned that, and she's actually, I think she said she's like in her 50s or 60s. But she also mentioned that her father and grandfather were not at all embracing or accepting of people that were darker. They were very much against it. And this is the shit that, again, y'all don't want to tell y'all kids, especially you that are dark or that are lighter, that you don't want to tell the truth of a lot of y'all fathers and grandfathers and great-grandparents were not fond of people that were darker. But you also know I still break that down, and I'm not going to get into depth about all of that. But there are people that are darker. It's the same thing. That are also very passive or like really not accepting of people that are lighter. I'm bringing this to the awareness of the wholeness, because there are churches that is the same, especially in the South, that, you grow up in these churches that are darker. I'm going to let you know, we might have only had one person that was lighter. One or two that was of what we call I call a different nationality. Some people may say European descent or whatever. It could be Scottish. It can be a lot of things. Because I wanted to bring this perspective to not say just color, but nationality, and then seeing past the color. I'm going to levels with this shit. But I'm bringing awareness to the fact of this is what's being exposed. When you have a lot of what these corporations, universities, and a lot of these places are built upon, they are built upon, let me say it, very much racism, very much ignorance, very much greed and selfishness, very much not really embracing or even want to share amongst people that are darker. And this is where you have structural racism. Research it, people, and you'll realize what you've been a part of. So going back to the religious aspect of that too as well. Are you ready? There are people, especially in these villages and towns, they do not want, because again, they are reenacting what their grandfather and grandmother did. They don't want no people darker really going to their church. And if they say that they are and they try to switch it up, a lot of it has to do with, again, masking it. They're masking it. And then, of course, they try to say, oh, the first thing they say, and a lot of us know this, oh, I have said black friends. Okay, what that mean? And I'll be pulling people cars and calling them out on it. I'm like, bro, you can say that, but you don't be around people. You know nothing about us. A lot of people even have this internal racism has a lot to do with their internal dialogue or even what they've inherited. A lot of you people that are lighter, just as people that are darker, y'all also inherited a hatred for self and a hatred for people that are darker. Stop playing. Stop playing, but you allow your kids to listen to music that is very much self-destructive to darker kids just as much as it's to your kids. It's very much self-destructive. Because, and I'm going to give you how it is both ways before I get back into the religious aspect. People that are darker will let their kids listen to this self-destructive music, drugs, and all this other shit, and then the consequences of that, and wonder why their kids end up behind bars and so forth and so forth. Okay. Now, the only difference between kids that are lighter and so forth is that I see it. I've seen it. They'll let their kids listen to this music and so forth, but they don't even realize how passive racist a lot of you are. And some of you probably will never know until this message. Because, and it's not even that it's your fault. A lot of you know that you come from grandfathers and grandmothers that are not, they will literally will disown you. That's what the lady was telling me today. Her grandfather or father would disown her. Disown her. Look how ridiculous this shit is. They will disown her just because she talked to someone darker. Will make a child feel shameful and guilty. Oh, let me dive into the great part. She even said, I said, it's funny how y'all talk about this book, this Bible, but in there again and again, for whoever wants to believe it and whoever wants to argue, I'm not here to debate with you. In there, it said that this character was of bronze and his hair was that of wool and his eyes were like, what is it? Something like flames or something bronze in his skin and so forth. Y'all know. And she even confessed and said, yeah. I said, but how many of you that look like you are out here saying that? I said, how many homes that you know that are people that are predominantly Caucasian, European, whatever you want to use the terminology. I said, there is no man in your house that look like me on your wall. You're Jesus. And I'm not coming against any people who believe in whatever. Again, I respect whatever it is because I'm not here to do that. I grew up in that background. At the same moment, I question a lot of things because I question why even grandmothers and some people had a person. I told her, I said, to have a man that looked like you with blue eyes and long hair. And I said, you don't see the psychological warfare in that? I said, it's almost like this superiority to, this race, and people don't see past that to see that this is who I'm praying to. Okay. And they don't even see the programming in how that person, if you're darker, why shouldn't your so-called Jesus, Yahshua, whatever, Yahweh, why shouldn't that character be your complexion? Why is it that people that are darker in this country have just this image? But when we go into people that are lighter, why don't they have a darker image if they know the truth? And I saw someone say there are two dangerous people in the world. And this is one thing accepting about speaking the uncomfortable truth and also not speaking your truth at all. Or keeping it in because you're afraid of not just the consequences, but the backlash or the ridicule and the criticism. I said, but didn't certain characters such as your Jesus or anybody else go through the same attacks? Didn't they crucify him in the metaphysical sense? Didn't they crucify him or her in the spiritual sense? Don't people go through that every day when they're judged? So I asked myself, I said, how many of people that are lighter? I said, you don't got no man in your home that look like me, but you're sitting here telling me eye to eye that you know him to be darker. But why aren't you spreading that message? Because the people, a lot of you hide behind your religion. You hide behind an image. You hide behind these characters. And the divine, the creator, the Most High sees everything. A lot of you hide behind the pulpit, or whatever you want to call it. A lot of you pastors, preachers, whether women or men, you know when it comes to the organization, the organized religion aspect of things that are structurally crumbling right before you, you're panicking. And your judgment is to speak the truth. And you know that. And a lot of you keep it in because you don't want, I tell myself, I don't know no church that's running off of air. Y'all got to pay. Y'all got to do this and so forth. And I told her, I said, I don't know. I said, why is it? Ask me this. Why is it that you know this character to be darker and look more like me, but yet you don't go out there spreading either that message, and it's not to make it about color, but you say you know this to be true. But you probably still, a lot of you still probably have that image. And y'all try to attack certain characters that are in certain positions, such as, people that are coming out displaying the original, people of said areas, and we're automatically labeled as a minority and not the majority. And this isn't a superior thing. This isn't about who's better. This is about bringing awareness. This is about knowing, again, passive racism amongst churches, structural racism in communities, passive racism where you walk out, you go to the store, people pretend like they want to say, hey, and they did. A lot of us know, people that are darker know what this means. You don't really know what's behind that. They don't know what's behind that. You don't know what's behind that. And so, you got people that even people that date darker, like, let's say, using myself, someone that deals with someone that is a lighter or whatever. You got some people that won't even look your way, or they won't even deal with you just because you're with someone darker. A lot of you don't talk about this. A lot of you know. There's a lot of people out there that will disown you, and it's a part of the darker community too. They will disown you. They will come up with their own beliefs, like, why would you date that girl? Why would you date this boy? Da 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 da. Just because they have a different culture, or religion, or belief, or a lighter or a different shade. And y'all so fucked up in y'all programming, y'all don't even see it. And you get judged, you get ridiculed, immediately crucified, and just, all these things just because, well, she doesn't believe in God, or she believes that, because I don't want to sit here and believe that somebody came from a rib. And then I just see so much programming in so many women, no matter what culture and or skin complexion. They don't even see the power in who they are. They don't even see how man or people have organized certain religions to prey on their father wounds, for them to keep looking outside for this father figure, for them to be looking at things without even seeing. I'm going to give you an analogy. For something to be removed from you, I ask myself this, if how the fuck did this make sense? I tell myself, how can, what was the story? Was it that man come from, how is it that the woman comes from man rib, yet the woman has ovaries, she has more everything internally in her body? Then she was like, I said, I was just dropping stuff. I said, how can we not see the Holy Spirit being the mother or the matriarchal aspect? And this is my perspective, the matriarchal aspect of that. I said, how can you just have a father and then the son? And just, I asked, how do we all get here? I said, through a woman, right? So how do you remove and displace the woman in all of that shit? Because that's how you devalue the woman. And this is what's being so much exposed when it comes to women rising in their healing that wounded masculine, and then seeing and healing that wounded feminine, to realize that The original trinity of everything has a lot to do with the fact of the mother, the father, and the son. Or child, if you want to use that term. So in a metaphorical sense, feminine, masculine, to create what? Again, it's like when we talk about matriarchal and patriarchal, and you keep that cycle going. So I asked myself, I'm like, how isn't the whole, what y'all call the Holy Spirit, the mother? How? Like, add it up. Literally, add it up. Because what I asked myself, what is the Holy Spirit to you? And so for me, again, I'm like, there's so much, again, that is being exposed and lifted from the fact of, like, a lot of it, the organized religion aspect. I said, you don't see how certain things is to uphold the patriarchal? To really uphold the patriarchal above the matriarchal, when in reality, I said the matriarchal was here before anything. Because how can anybody come through here and get here without coming through the womb of a woman? And so, okay, people can argue, they can feel ways or whatever, but guess what? It is what it is. And a lot of you women, you don't even question the fact of, like, you have two ovaries. You have all these things more than what a man, genetically has. You carry the child for, 9 to almost 10 months to a completion. You go through so much spiritual, mental transformation, emotional transformation. You endure the most hardship, or whatever you want to call it. And you don't even question the fact of how is a woman not and has been removed from everything. Because so many people don't realize how wounded. Even when you see how it's displayed in certain religions, and not all, but when it comes to the fact of what is the vocal point or focus on most has a lot to do with honoring the man more, and really devaluing the woman in so many ways. The celebration around the feminine, which gives birth to the masculine energetically. So you talk about the wounded aspect of not realizing, like, how can we not see that woman has been displaced or removed from any type of religion or spirituality, and see that this is a shift. This is a changing of times. This is a new world being replaced. Things are being restored, and a lot of women already knowing that, and the ones that don't, they don't have to. But I'm seeing this a lot when it comes to, again, going back to these communities where there's passive racism, and a lot of stuff is that, how can these pastors and people know that this character is this, but you have so much hatred or internalized hatred or whatever against the men and women that reflect that? How a lot of you said that we all are made in the image of God, the creator, right? And a lot of you internally don't even care for people that are darker. But yet, a lot of you try to mask it. And it can't be masked anymore. A lot of it. I've been wanting to get more on the topic of passive racism when it comes to sports. A lot of that shit. Yeah. A lot of that stuff when it comes to the fact that you don't care to deal with people darker at all. And then, but you're okay with them playing sports and making money and betting on them. Some may call it modern day, like, captivity, or they use the term slavery. And then even people that are darker do the same thing. Like I said, no one's exempt, no one's excluded. But a lot of this, I'm speaking about what I see in a lot of schools, universities, and things that they just brush up under the rug. Oh no, they rather give you religion, give you certain things, but y'all character don't even reflect that shit. Y'all don't even reflect the integrity of that. I see it all the time. People turn their nose up, turn away from people that are darker. They want that organization They don't want anything. Even when you look at the media, when you look at all these structures, a lot of that shit is centered around passive racism, structural racism, all of it. When you look at the media where makeup brands and a lot of stuff, they don't even care enough to really, unless they really want to change it because they're so greedy, they're not, you don't see a lot of people on there with big lips, crooked teeth, people that are darker, people that to some people's natural eye don't look as pretty as this woman, people that have certain things like this and look a certain way, or tattoo. There's an image to uphold. And I tell people, and I had to tell the lady today, I was like, there's nothing in this country, or had been for who knows, that upholds anything that empowers me. Your religion, your religious, anything that upholds the image of a darker person. There's nothing that upholds an image when it comes to corporate. Yeah, you got these people in said sports, okay, but they're not. What are they specifically representing? When they're just representing the image for that corporation, that brand, or whatever. But when it comes to integrity, when it comes to the fact of them speaking for the youth, they're not doing that shit. When it comes for them challenging or try to challenge the norm of what they're a part of, what they've been in for so long, they'll be stripped of it. They're afraid because it's the image, because of the identity around it. And again, it's no different than when you see passive racism amongst people that are dark. And some people say, how you gonna be dark? I told you, hatred, self-hatred. There are people that are darker too, have self-hatred amongst their own people. They don't even want to deal with their own people because they have this stigma or this ideology that either all women or all men are like that. And it's no different than a lot of these organizations and, again, everywhere. Some people have beliefs that, they're only good for basketball and football. They're only good for going out there doing this to each other, hurting each other. They're only good for that. They're only good for making babies, da-da-da-da. Again, but these structures are centered around that, the root of it. When you go into different communities, you see a lot of, let's say this, you don't see a lot of fast foods, a lot of certain things in certain areas. You don't see a lot of, what do they call them things? Clinics and a lot of, certain things that I don't been in communities that people that don't look like me, that are lighter, and they have fucking everything right at like walking distance, everything. They have everything right there, literally right there. And how can we call ourselves human beings, which is disgust me, and say that equality and believe that y'all have a God or y'all believe in this certain things, but none of you go to the fucking communities of these people because you are so afraid. You are so afraid because some of them people is just as much what you have belief about them. They have a same belief about something about you that either was programmed in them or they've seen it or they've experienced it. And this is what divides people, because that's all these corporations, these universities, all this shit is centered around division. Schools, races, like when you talk about race, all this stuff keep being thrown in our faces. Like, who and what can tell me that people, especially that are darker, are ignorant or less valuable just because when we do the statistic that this demographic is more smarter? Bitch, let me tell y'all something. Don't ever think you're going to come to me and insult my intelligence. Because one thing that I tell you we've always been advanced. That's not everybody, but I know myself. Now, when it comes to things where I learn differently, that's different. But won't no teacher, no professor, there's nobody outside of me that can ever come and insult my fucking intelligence when it comes to me knowing who I am. And just because I don't have a degree, that when it comes to, again, passive racism, he's not, we don't want him working here. Oh, yeah. You want kids to cut their hair off that looks like this. Let's not get on that. You want certain women in corporate America and certain women that have to wear their hair straight just to appease and look a certain way. Oh, another thing, passive racism, is that you have women that are lighter in certain positions and their husband own the business, and they don't want to hire him, or boy, I can go deep because I know people that went through this. A lot of these women, because this is on a lot of women that are lighter. Now, how could I say this? Let's just say this. The very thing people try to keep their kids from, I notice that in these villages and towns like this that are what they call white conservative towns, those wives, a lot of those wives and a lot of these kids probably have never seen people that are darker until like now. Because you don't even realize, a lot of y'all don't realize how long they've been growing up in this shit. How they people have kept them sheltered and away from people that are darker. I'm talking about homeschool and so forth. And some of these very people rebel and have this, they eventually gonna want to venture out and connect with people that are darker. And you gotta realize a lot of them been programmed so much, it's been drilled in their minds that darker people are the worst people on this planet or in this world. Yes. When you look at your media and so forth. And even some people that are darker, even when I was a child, I used to believe that because of how the media portrayed me as a young boy and a young man. I wanted to believe like I was not better than that, but I couldn't because I knew I came from something greater. It's just history didn't tell me that, well, what was all these great things that happened before me? Because if I look at everything, people that are lighter and darker of any type of shade or culture have done and went through some type of captivity, went through some type of bullshit. Something we can relate to. Everyone has experienced pain. So I'm sitting here like, what is this really about? A lot of your corporations, a lot of these places cannot withstand, and that's why you're seeing it crumble now. They're no longer going to stand the test of time. Their time is up. And that's why it's going to be exposed. I said, the Most High has brought me to places to see like, wow, these people ain't want no, I don't know why jigaboos. They ain't want no darker certain people here. And that's where the passive racism comes in. That's where I've seen elders that call themselves evangelists that are lighter shade and all this. I'm so for Jesus and I love the Lord. Will not even look a darker person in their eyes. I'm telling you from experience. They won't even lend a helping hand. People won't even go to communities that are darker because they're so afraid, because they have this belief that all those people are the same and don't even know about the demographics and truthfully what those people really have went through and or going through. And you'll be surprised when you sit down. You know how many people minds I have blown by sitting with people and they think that I'm just another nigga. Honestly. A good for nothing. Oh, he's working, he's doing this. And they ego so big. I've noticed this about what America has built, that their ego is so big. Some fair-skinned men, their ego is so big when it comes to just because they own this and own that, and that's the only thing they have. They're not even connected to their essence. They're hiding behind so much of their image and how some of their ancestors came into fucking stolen land, or their ancestors came into things where they murdered people. And this is what this country that y'all brag about has built upon, the bodies of innocent people, kids, generations, from both lighter and darker people. Learn about it. But a lot of people that are in position now, they know exactly. You think people of darker and lighter shades, they had to sit down into some type of agreement? Man, y'all better learn about who on a $2 bill. Man, you better learn about the Moors and people that came here. You better learn about who really is in captivity. Because a lot of you are in captivity until you realize that you are in you. You know you better than anybody. Because I was telling the lady, I said, you know what people really afraid of? I said, retribution. And retribution can look different for everybody, but I'm talking about retribution for a darker man in a country that hasn't in the last couple 100 years did anything to empower not just men that are darker, but women that are darker. Nothing to uplift them. You want me to believe that you're going to give me an image of a man that don't look like me, and I should not question the fact of, like, why isn't this person even looks like me? Maybe I will move different. Maybe I will have a different belief system. But you want me to believe and accept that norm? You don't think that has some type of psychological warfare or psychological effect on my life? That every time I got to go do something, I got to go to this person that don't look like me. Then even if I do, there's people that, not always the case, but there's people that are darker that don't want to have shit to do with me because of this person, or I heard you come from this family, or this and this. So it happens all across the scale. And now that the shit is crumbling, all of it's crumbling, you want me to believe that all these structures and all this shit has invested in my well-being? I'm going to get on another topic soon about, don't let me get on the topic about athletes, the kids that I talk to of different shades that tell me about their experience. There's nothing about what is going on that now the tables are turning. Now the tables are turning. Again, that retribution, being restored. Seeing the uncomfortable pains, the uncomfortable truths about how the fuck this country has been moving. How people have been moving. And now they're faced with it. Now they're going to be publicly humiliated. And I'm not judging none. Because guess what? The judgment is for the Most High. Just know, I told you, I don't deal with people think they finna come to me and think I'm just this goofy. Nah. You got to know who you are. You got to know exactly the pains, the wounds, and also where you're going. Like I said, you got to be the one to do it. You got to be the one. Because a lot of y'all sit back and know what your pastors, the preachers, and whatever organization, a lot of you know the backstory about a lot of these things. And eventually, guess what? This is Aquarian age. You ain't got to believe in a lot of things, but guess what? Everything should be exposed. Everything. And it is what it is. Peace and blessings to you all. Shalom.